Welcome to the Designing Hollywood podcast in association with the John Campea Show. I am your host, Robert Meyer Burnett. The Designing Hollywood podcast show is dedicated to all things movies, the movie industry, and its talented professionals.
Thank you for tuning in to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Universal's costume department, the best in the world.
Our guest today is a two-time Oscar winner for Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. She's made history as the first African-American to win the costume design category and the most winning African-American woman in Academy history. A four-time Oscar nominee, including for Malcolm X and Amistad, she has 58 feature film credits, including Do the Right Thing, What's Love Got to Do with It, The Butler, and Selma. Her legendary career has been recognized with the Costume Designers Guild Career Achievement Award in 2019 and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2021. She's also a member of the Board of Governors for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and her costumes are featured in a traveling exhibit entitled Afrofuturism in Costume Design, and in her book, The Art of Ruth E. Carter. In her latest project, Sinners, she steps into an entirely new world, one that's gritty, raw, and deeply human. She crafts a wardrobe that reflects the inner turmoil of the characters caught between survival and salvation. From weathered textures to layered symbolism, every piece tells a story, not just of who these characters are, but of who they might become. Her ability to blend street realism with subtle spiritual undertones gives Sinners a distinct visual voice that's both grounded and transcendent. She doesn't just dress characters, she reveals them. And today, she's here to talk about how she brought the world of Sinners to life, thread by thread. Without further ado, please welcome Ruth Carter to the Designing Hollywood show. Ruth, welcome back. It's so good to speak with you.
Thank you. I think we've had enough time in between to come up with more subjects. I've done a few movies since we last.
This new film, Sinners, you know, I saw it again last night and I was just blown away by it. I got to ask, you'd worked with Ryan Coogler before. When did you first hear about this movie? What were you told about it? And what was it like for you to read the script for the very first time?
Oh, wow. That's so incredible. I was prepping Blade for Marvel, and it was a 1920s Blade story. And it got shut down because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. And so I was just in limbo, having done a lot of research, for this period piece about a vampire. Blade is a vampire story.
Right.
And Ryan's wife, Zinzi, who also was a producer on the picture, she gave me a call and she said, I'm not going to tell you the story, but Ryan has a story he's going to tell you about. I can't do it justice like he can, so I'm not going to get into the details, but it is a period piece about vampires. And I thought, okay, I have already been living in that space for quite a long time doing prepping Blade, and Blade's not going to happen. So, let me hear it. And then a few days later, Ryan called me and he told me verbally over the phone what the story was. And I was blown away again. And I couldn't believe that, he was not only doing a period piece, but he was doing a vampire film. If I were to guess what his next film after Black Panther would have been, I don't know if I would have gone into that space, and realizing that, he loved the vampire film, and that, even working with him on Black Panther, that he was such a comic book fan and aficionado that, it started to make sense for me. And then when I got the script and I read the written words, and we came to that scene where, it travels through musical, how blues influenced music from past to present to future. You're blown away by the words. It's really his vision, and you're excited to delve in and really make it come to life. And in so many ideas are coming together for you. But also this beautiful cast, of actors who really embodied each character and really wanted, like, the creative process to envelop and support their performances.
Well, speaking of cast, we'll get to Michael B. Jordan playing twin brothers, but Miles Caton. It's Caton, how you pronounce?
Yes.
What Where did he come from? What a find.
Was
Oh
first
my God.
Yeah,
What?
and well, he was a musician already and a singer, so that part came as second nature, I guess. And so he had to study the acting part and what that all was meant. And maybe he channeled through his own musical passion to create this story. Probably there were many parts of that story that he could personally connect to.
And then, of course, I was watching a review of the film just the other day, and they were talking about Delroy Lindo and how Delroy Lindo just came on, is in this movie, again, creates an unforgettable character. I mean, there's something about Delroy Lindo's face and his voice. I mean, he's one of the most unique actors in cinema. And
Yes.
I remember him playing like a voodoo priest in the Al Pacino movie Devil's Advocate, and he was in the film, and then of course Michael B. Jordan.
All the way back to Malcolm X.
Yeah, I mean,
I've always known Delroy to give it such character and such depth, and such great performance. And I'm always excited that when Delroy is listed as a part of the cast, that I'm gonna have a treat. And I usually allow him to embody in the fitting room. I allow him to really embody the character. He goes into character a bit. He starts moving and feeling out the clothes and asking questions, or just seeing that transformation. He is a true master.
well, with this film, I love the idea that Michael B. Jordan is playing twins.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to start from there. First of all, the clothes in this film, I mean, you can hear them, and on the bigger screens, the IMAX screens, you can feel them. I mean, there is much a character in this film as the actors themselves. I mean, you've always brought that to your work, but there was something about this milieu and what you were doing. Like, first of all, Smoke and Stack have a background, Chicago gangsters, and they come back to start their juke joint. And did you know that he was going to play twin brothers in the movie?
Yes, absolutely, from the very beginning. And that's part of the creating the looks for the two of them and how to separate them. And the first thing that Ryan Coogler said to me was that Smoke was blue and Stack was red. And, it took me a while to sort of like sit into that, because I was like, okay, smoke is red, smoke is red. How do I bring that out in his clothes? And I had several options. We had several directions. We were in that. I mean, look, my job is hard. I'm dressing Michael B. Jordan twice.
I know.
Don't you feel sorry for me?
Yeah, that's a real rough one.
That's a rough one. But he's also very interested in creating character. And he knew so much about how he wanted to play the character. Once we dressed him as Stack and it felt good, we had a couple of options. We had one story day. So he wasn't going to change, So it's not like a picture where you have a second chance to show a little bit more of, who he is as a character. In this case, we deconstructed the costume. We started full on, and then he loses this and he loses that, and he ends up, Smoke ends up in a tank top. So there's more of a reverse creating of the character, if you would, as opposed to having more days in the story to give him another outfit to show you how different he is. So that was a challenge, and but we found it, and there were lots of conversations. Ryan came into the fitting on one occasion, and that's when we discovered the red hat. And once we put that red hat on for Stack, it was check the box. We're
Right.
very excited about how he transformed once he put that hat on. And it was very important that that hat during the whole filming process always stayed crisp. He never broke it. And my costumers were walking around with a shaped, leather case that hat lived in. So we were really excited about, supporting Michael B. Jordan's performances as the two brothers. There's one that's kind of like a brawler, and his clothes fit bigger. Smoke's clothes fit bigger because he's carrying guns and he has a holster on underneath it, and so we wanted him to have that brutal kind of a texture. It's a houndstooth, and it's patch pockets, and then Stack on the other side, he's kind of a pimp. He's got his gold teeth and he's all accoutrements, and he wears everything. He's got the collar bar, he's got the tie bar, he's got the pocket square, he's got the matching tie. I mean, he takes it to another place.
Yeah, I mean, I just again, you did such a great job on these costumes. Now, when you develop a costume or a character really with an actor, when he was working with you, was he kind of in character when you were dressing him so he could delineate between the two characters that he was playing?
Michael B. Jordan's been an actor for a long time, since he was a kid. And he has his own process in terms of how he gets through his day. He had to switch back and forth between characters, and they were very clearly delineated for him. So he wasn't in character as much as you might think, because he had to code switch.
Right.
We sent him back to the trailer to change, several times in the course of a day. And so he really, it was less Stanislavski as you might think. He really had the process, the technical process of who this character was. So he knew how to switch it on and switch it off.
Right. Now, the logistics behind filming something like this fascinate me. And I'm sure we're going to get a behind the scenes video that shows how it was all from a visual effects standpoint. But what challenges did that make for the costume department? I mean, obviously there's a lot more continuity challenges, because if you're making those costume changes, how many multiples did you have to make for each of his costumes?
Multiples. There was a process of, especially towards the end when the background, spoiler alert, they feel the pain of their leader, and they're all bloody. So every background player had to have multiples. Even in the juke joint, we shot out of sequence, and so there were times when we had to note that background was not bloody, and then there were times that they were. So in a normal situation, you might not have that many multiples for across the board everybody seen on camera. But in this case, we had to make sure we did for everyone on camera. And that poses a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
The fire that happens at the end, they burn. A lot of that was done, with visual effects, but there were certain requirements that we also had to, understand and implement. So it was a very challenging film to make.
Yes, and another great component of the female characters in the movie and what they represent.
Yes.
And can you kind of take us through like you talked about how Smoke and Stack and Ryan Coogler said one was red. What was he? I mean, you have different spiritualities with the female characters in the movie. How did he convey to you what he wanted from the female characters to represent the film?
Also get cues from production design, as well as how Autumn is going to shoot the film, and it gives me a sense of the depth of color. There's that haint blue that Annie lived around as a part of a spiritual color, so I took the haint blue and used it in her clothes. I wanted her to have these layers that you first meet her, it's the Mississippi Delta. She's got a little small place. She sells all different kinds of things to her community. She's a community person. She's also a healer, a spiritual leader. So I needed all of those layers to be a part of her when we are introduced to her. So you see her standing in the doorway, and there's a little fringe, there's a mojo bag, there's a chatelaine, there's beads that she wears that are spiritual blessed beads. And so we get it right away that this person is important and this person has a spiritual base. And what
a great actress. She has such a great look.
Yes,
How do you, is it wound me? How do you pronounce?
wound, like a wound and wound knee.
Yeah, like she wooed me in the head. Definitely. No, she's got an incredible. I mean, the casting in the film.
Yeah.
She has that kind of ethereal quality to her anyway. She was in like Lovecraft country, and
Yeah, she was.
uh,
And, and she's like a real woman. And I love the fact that, we have a Smoke and Stack having very different taste in their love interests. And it just felt so real and so relatable to have this romance between Rumi and Smoke, or Annie and Smoke, I should say.
yeah.
And it just like it's a part of life that you don't see on cinema and can't on screen ever. And it just kind of was a relief to me. And I just wanted to support her performance. I mean, she comes to me with all of the things that she's thinking about in her character. She doesn't come to me with things that she's thinking about wearing. And so it's up to me to understand like where she's going with the character so I can begin to build it. And we did a lot of layering with her. We did a lot of dyeing and aging. And it was very important that, like you say, the costumes were a part of the story and like another character in the story. So across the board, we were making sure everyone had sweat and looked like they were in a working class. They were below working class. They were disenfranchised. They were sharecroppers.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to show how people emerge from creating something out of what seems to be nothing. They make nothing look like something really wonderful and huge by creating the blues.
Oh, it's interesting because I remember coming out of, you did Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. And I remember coming out of that movie thinking, this is an important piece of cinema that's going to stand the test of time. And it was a story of very much torn from the headlines. It was very much an American story. It was very much a Black story. It was very much a New York story. I kind of felt the same way about this. I mean, it was an American story. It's a Black story. It's a music story. It's a spiritual story. And it works on so many levels that I was not expecting at all. Yeah. And I think that people are going to go like, I haven't seen a movie that I've wanted to revisit again. I mean, like I told him, see it multiple times, multiple formats this weekend. When you were putting this all together,
Nectar, and I feel like in Do the Right Thing, when you hear "Fight the Power" by the Enemy, it puts you in time, it puts you in place. You understand this is a community that is thriving, that has challenges of time and of circumstance, and that is repeated with Sinners.
Yes, and I'll tell you something. In the marketing, they don't tip their hand. There's very little of the music in the marketing of the movie. So when I went to it, I was blown away. I was the musical component of this, because it's not really been featured. The music is incredible. And
we did hand with Ludwig Göransson and his wife. They both produced the film. Their offices were right next to ours, and I got to meet some of the most incredible blues musicians. Some of them you don't really get to see in the film, but I know they're there as the camera sweeps by at the railroad station. I recognize them, and they came in with such stories. They knew the story of the blues. They knew the story of the South, and they were excited to be there. And I think all of that energy that Ludwig Göransson and his wife put into creating this, surrounding us with the music. We actually were listening to the music that was going to eventually be in the film. Not all of it, but some of the key music was part of our shooting process.
Now, when you are developing costumes that people have to be able to play in, or any kind of, was that a different kind of a thing? Is there a blues fashion sense that you had to delve into from a historical standpoint?
Yeah, we play the blues, or if they come in and they have music that they have created that's out there, we play their music. So I understand them a lot better in terms of what they play. And sometimes they tell me about, how they, need to be looser or something. But for the most part, they're intrigued by the filmmaking process, and they want to create the character too. And so if you have an idea, I mean, one of the guys, he was a piano player. He's actually in the film film. He was from Cuba. And as we were dressing him, we noticed he had 2 different color socks on. And I thought, we're going to keep that, you know? And so in the film, he has 2 different color socks on. I mean, there was just this, this sense of, you know, bringing together a genre, bringing together a story, many layers of a story that we all embraced completely.
Well, and then there's also, I have to delve into the history. You know, there's a really, I don't want to like spoil it for people, but there's kind of a journey that's taken through the history of music in the film. I mean, literally, where you see something. How did you approach that sequence? And was that something? I was blown away by this. It was such an audacious thing to do.
That was a beautiful moment for me as well. It was a beautiful moment to read the words as well as make those words, you know, visual and to come to life. And, you know, as we, you know, brought together ideas, the Poro dancer you see with the mask and all of the scripts, you know, we decided on the color and the look of the mask. And then you have a Senegalese Zalem player. You have all of these elements. You have Alvin Ailey dancer coming through. You have a Chinese tiger dancer. You have all of these elements that we needed to visually all understand. So as I had their fittings, I would go to the stage where we were shooting, and I'd put up boards for the hair and makeup and everyone who might be curious about how this beautiful scene that was written plays out visually.
Yeah.
I was constantly putting the visuals in front of my fellow comrades so that they could see where we were going well before we shot the scene.
Yeah. How long did that development process take? Like, and how much research?
Didn't have a long shooting time. We started, I guess, in March, and we were done by July.
Wow.
So it was quick. And so you're constantly working as you're shooting. And so we had some locations that were really far out and some days that were continuity. So I got a break to actually, you know, focus and concentrate on like the historical elements of you know, creating this surrealistic scene. And then they would come in and we'd be on the stage, which was right in by our offices, and I could, you know, have all those meetings and show things to Ryan. And, you know, it was a process. It was a process. Some things happen, like we had the different types of dancers and the B-boys, and we went to collectors. I had a collector in Los Angeles that, you know, had the, you know, LL Cool J, Kango hat and the white tracksuit. We had the gazelles made for the DJ. You know, there were all of these elements where I had to source different places to get them authentically.
Wow. Now, a collector, I can't imagine he would part with anything that from LL Cool J's early.
So they weren't his, but it was exactly what he wore in a certain time.
Right.
During the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, I was a big, Walking with a Panther was big for me.
yeah.
This is great stuff. But now there's also the horror element as well. And the character of Remick, Jack O'Connell's character.
Yeah.
How did Ryan, like, everybody's got their own vampire mythology. How do things work? And you kind of have your own in this movie as well. How did Ryan Coogler come to you, and tell us about the development of the supernatural, what did the vampires have an aesthetic? Did they have a fashion sense in your mind?
Well, because they were Appalachian, you know, we wanted to really be honoring that kind of what that culture kind of brought to the music, and also the fact that they were, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, and what that would look like. And there was this element of denim and cotton, and, you know, suspenders with belts. I mean, the belt had just come into vogue, I guess. People
Right.
were just beginning to wear belts. So most of the pictures I looked at, there was a suspender and a belt, that was worn. And so that was one element of Remick that I particularly enjoyed seeing every day. And he hiked his pants up really high because the pants of this period had a really long rise. And so it just really worked for him and he enjoyed wearing them. We had some elements that you didn't see where he first walks up to the juke, he has changed his clothes from when we first met him, kind of burning and sizzling. So we get to the juke and they've all changed their clothes and they've kind of presented themselves as, normal. But we have this quirkiness about them. They're very quirky. And that's what I wanted to show in their clothes.
Right. Well, it really came through. Now, when you're doing, when all hell breaks loose, so to speak, how do you keep, like you said, you were shooting out of continuity. I would imagine, like, how many doubles or multiples did you have to have for everybody?
It's countless. The continuity, not only of the actual having multiples, but of the amount of blood, because, as the story progresses, the blood gets heavier and heavier. So we had to keep track of that. And our truck was, full of like plastic coverings and, organized like a library, but it was, I had a very strong team that, knew the steps to take to make sure that, when they wanted to shoot something earlier, that we had the earlier version all ready to go.
Yeah, when Quentin Tarantino made Kill Bill, he had special colors of blood made based on, like, there was blood for Japanese movies, so he wanted to see Japanese blood. And I was curious because the blood, it seemed very distinct in this movie, and like you just said, the blood gets darker. And
our makeup artist, the key makeup artist, brought in some blood from England that she felt was the best looking blood in film. And so that's what we all used.
I love it. English blood. So, I mean, as you moved along in this process, being that it sounds like you moved fairly quickly when you're making this film. What do you think? I mean, when you're being evocative of this period, and there's a lot of layering and things and different, did you find that there were certain fabrics that you leaned into more than, say, others? And it always looked to me like whenever back in the day when you're wearing clothing that's layered in Mississippi, you got to take it off because the heat and the humidity and you really felt that. And did you have issues with fabrics? Like it's just going to get too hot and people are going to burn up if they wear this stuff?
Yeah, well, I think today we have more issues with fabrics than they did back then. I think people don't realize that actually wool it kept you cooler than it actually you would think. It was an insulating kind of a thing. And also because Smoke and Stack came from Chicago.
Right.
I to show that they had come from outside of the Mississippi Delta, and then the fabrics of the community was, cotton was king. They were picking cotton, and it was workwear and denim and cotton shirts, and people were barefoot, and there was dust and there was sweat. So it was important to me to sort of really bring in a lot of natural fibers and keep the story alive through like the way the lifestyle deemed that the clothes should be worn.
Right. And then there was also a component, you have a Chinese immigrant element in the film as well. So what were some of the things, where did you look to for that? Was that
and the one advisor who I had was very clear with me about like the religious element, that the Chinese Americans were very much a part of the fabric of the Mississippi, and they did own these storefronts, but they were also Christians, and they had a strong belief in and sense of family, and it would be very realistic and believable for Grace to wear a cross, and it also helped with the vampire layer, because sometimes when you see these vampire movies, I mean, I grew up with Barnabas Collins, and
yes,
so
Dark Shadows.
shadows, and you know that this kind of religion that we see with Annie also plays out with Grace and her belief, and that's when you see her being torn about, going and out and you reuniting with her husband who's out there, but they're like, he's out there, he's a vampire, he's not real. It's just like this whole blending of culture and religion and time and place.
Well, that was something that I think really, I don't want to say elevated because it was in the project to begin with, but really brought, I loved seeing that the spiritual aspects, the musical aspects, the different cultural aspects all kind of come together, which was, again, not expected when I first went into the movie. And I think that it's such an interesting film that does so many different things, and what you guys did in terms of bringing the culture forward through the clothing and through the costuming was it just brought a layer to the film that, first of all, it's beautifully shot, and every frame is just gorgeous. I mean, I haven't seen a movie that's been getting so much press about its cinematography, which I love to see. It's
love to see too. I feel like there's a generation here that has been cheated out of like the cinematic experience that, they came into movies and storytelling through streaming, and it's a new awakening with Ryan being at the front and explaining what the different film stocks mean and what you get from them. He is teaching a master class to this generation of kids who have missed out. And so I feel it's important to be able to see the film and then understand how we did it.
Well, Autumn Arkapaw is her. She's just, her work is just stunning. I was watching an interview. I think it was done in IMAX headquarters with the two of them, with Ryan Coogler and her working together, and they worked together on Wakanda Forever as well.
Yeah, we did.
What a relationship, and how for you did you work closely with her in terms of colors and costumes and the production design on this?
Yeah, we work together every day. It's an immersive experience every day, and it's nothing to see us having a sidebar. And in the setup of the film, we're sharing images, we're sharing research, we're talking. The filmmaking experience is different for each one of us as costume designer, production cinematographer. We all have a different job to do, but then we all have a similar job in that we're all trying to tell the same story. So it's important that we continue the conversation, because some things adjust and change. The weather could change, it could start to rain,
right?
Things that are looking different, or maybe even the script changes a little bit. So we're constantly in this huddle of understanding where this is going and what we're doing. And one thing I knew from asking her a lot of questions about how the IMAX experience would play out for the audience was knowing that I could put as much detail in front as possible, as much contrast as the camera would see it all. And that was really exciting to dust Delroy's bowler hat, or to really show how beautiful the blues and the reds could be. It was like Norman Rockwell, where you see this very simple palette, red, white, and blue, American Story, but then we have this layer on top of it.
Right.
Is the reality of sweat and struggle and strife, the reality of music and jubilance and joy, and then the layer of the genre film of horror. So it was important for us all to really keep talking about it so that we're presenting the story in the right manner.
Was there a difficulty in terms of, the costumes are pretty straightforward, but were there difficulties in this film that you didn't expect?
Well, we wanted it to be a super simple. I wanted to pull back. I didn't want every shot to be perfectly adorned and dressed. I wanted everything to be kind of clean and letting the characters come forward. And so you see Haley Stanfield's character, and she's in this soft pink, and she's kind of like a ghost.
Right.
And she enters the juke joint, and her texture and everything is very different than everyone. She doesn't have the same struggle at all. She's come from the outside, but it also layers a canvas for us to actually go into, what eventually happens with
Sure.
the blood. Yeah.
She was great in the film.
Yeah. So there was a challenge for me to let go because I'm not used to my costumes getting so bloody.
Right. Yeah, and pretty much all of them. No one was safe.
Oh,
You were just so. I mean, and what did you? Is there? I mean, at the end of every film you've done, because you've done big films, small films, historical films. What do you take away? What did you take away from Sinners?
that I am a storyteller. That's what I like to do. That's what I love to do. And when the story is, when it's felt on this level, when it starts from the top with the director, writer, producer, giving you good content, then you can really soar. And, the trust, I feel like we trusted each other's aesthetic, and we knew the whole time what we were doing. And when I usually have a difficult time when I first see a film that I do and I pick it apart, but I went on the journey on this film when I finally saw the final cut, and I enjoyed it, and I understood that I am a filmmaker and a storyteller, and that's what I love to do.
Yeah, and you forged collaborations. I mean, I've tried to explain to people that filmmaking, people, it's collaborative, but people work with the same people because your sensibilities meld, and you trust one another, and you can say what you want to one another, knowing it's in service of the work. When you forge these long-standing relationships with filmmakers, with directors, with cinematographers, production designers, actors, how important is that for your job? Is it something that is absolutely necessary?
Well, no, I never take for granted that the communication we had on the last story is going to be the same on this new story. The stories change. The filmmakers are different, even though we have the same, philosophy of telling authentic Black stories. Everyone is different. John Singleton was different from Spike Lee. Spike Lee is different from Ryan Coogler, but what they all have is a love for telling the story about the African American experience in their way. And I don't go from one film with the same director to the next, assuming that I know what they want. It's the story that really does deem the direction. And it may make it easier for me to ask, the dumb questions, or or feel that I can actually give more and more this time. There probably is naturally a sense of community and family that we develop as we continue to work together.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely what I loved about this film is in our world today, there's a lot of talk about various initiatives and getting people opportunities and taking away those opportunities. What I have loved about Ryan Coogler's work and your work on both both Black Panther films and this is they're both uniquely Black stories, but they're also stories about America, stories about our world today, and they're accessible to everyone, and
It's even approached like a Black story. I think it's a piece of American pie. And when we think of the blues and
oh yeah.
had on rock and roll, and that it's had on jazz, that it's had on, everything, and its origin, it's inclusive of everyone. So actually we're telling in a true American story.
Yeah, and I hope that a lot of people, especially young people today, were discovering things and making YouTube videos about listening to music. I mean,
The ones I talk to are totally into it and interested. I meet people all the time from all walks of life, and they tell me things that they liked about, the films that I've done. And as Sinners was approaching, I had so many young people saying that they already bought their ticket to see it in IMAX. They know they only have 2 weeks to see it in IMAX, and they're totally stoked and ready to go.
I just hope that I can imagine a bunch of young people, kids. I'm old now, but discovering the blues. I mean, I hope that we see a resurgence in blues music all over the world, because man, this is a great advertisement for one of the great American art forms. I mean,
I don't think it's gone anywhere. I think that they are sampling it. Those rhythms are in the background. Those rhythms are in the foreground. It's a part of the music that they are learning has never gone away.
and Ludwig Göransson, what they did in this. I mean, I'm not saying you guys are all going to win Academy Awards, but I'm saying you're probably going to win some Academy Awards.
Yeah. The way Lud made this like a rock concert was just genius.
And that was just something I had no idea I was going to see when I saw it. Yeah. And I'll tell you, they should have screenings like at the Sphere in Vegas where they just crank up the sound, because it was unbelievable.
Really, really great.
He's great.
He's a great filmmaker and musician.
Well, Ruth, I want to thank you for giving us this time. I know it's crazy promoting this, but whatever we can do to get the word out, it's great that you come back on this show. Everybody has got to run out and see this film on the biggest screen possible. And the great thing is you can see it in multiple formats, which are going to offer you different experiences, which that in itself is musical. So
I think it's important too, especially right now, to bring the people back to the theater. And now they're going back with not just, an interest in seeing a movie, they're interested in seeing a format and a style.
And an experience. Yeah. This movie is a true experience. Yeah. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank everybody involved with Sinners, and thanks to Warner Brothers and for everybody to making this possible. I hope it's a huge success. Not just for all you guys, but for true auteurist visions, for the studios to keep making them, because, man, we need more interesting movies like this.
We sure do. Thank you for having me.
Ruth Carter, thanks for being on the Designing Hollywood show. A special thank you to founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra, co-founder, costume designer, the legendary Marilyn Vance, and, of course, John Campea from The John Campea Show. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts. I am, of course, your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at rmburnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on YouTube at PostGeekSingularity. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and give us your comments. What would you like to see on the channel? Right down below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designing Hollywood.